Hi, I'm Shreya again, and today I'm going to be reviewing the book The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. This is a science fiction book which was written in the 19th century. The author, H.G. Wells, was a very prolific author, and he wrote many books which are still popular today. He wrote books on many topics, for example, social realism and fiction, especially science fiction. So in this book, as the name suggests, there's a time traveler who makes a time machine. Most people would consider this book as a science fiction book, but he has also addressed the problem of inequality in this book. He finds out that they're plagued by Morlocks. Morlocks are a small ape-like creature breed. He believes that the Eloi are the future generations of the upper class today. On the other hand, he believes that the Morlocks are the working class of today. He finds out that the higher class today will actually get lazier and weaker until they crumble into nothingness. Meanwhile, the people who are considered inferior today will grow and overpower the higher class. Almost every one of us thinks that traveling into the future will be fun, but in this book, H.G. Wells gives us a new point of view about traveling into the future. Although I felt the plot was very exciting and it was really great, I felt there could have been more excitement and more detail in the fighting scenes. I also felt that the book ended on a cliffhanger, which I didn't really like, but all considered, it's a good one-time read. When the time traveler makes the time machine, he invites a group of his colleagues and generalists and other people to show them the time machine. When he demonstrates the working of the smaller version of the time machine, no one believes him. So he decides to prove it by visiting the future. He requests his guests to come again the next day, but when they come, they find out their host is late. When he finally arrives, he is exhausted and disheveled looking, and first he goes and cleans up, then he eats something before telling them the story, even though they're very curious. He says that when he time traveled, he ended up in the future around 1 million years later, in a world of small creatures called the Eloi, which are plagued by the Morlocks, as you know already. He tells them the same thing that I told you before, that the Eloi are plagued by the Morlocks and the rest. He finds out when he goes into the world, he actually loses his time machine. He explores the nearby area and he finds out that his time machine is in the pedestal of a statue, but he can't open the pedestal as it's jammed. In the night, he begins to catch glimpses of some strange ape-like creatures, which he finds out to be the Morlocks later on. Meanwhile, he befriends and saves a small Eloi girl called Weena. The time traveler finds out that the Morlocks live underground, so he decides to climb into one well to hopefully recover his time machine. The only important thing he discovers before he's chased away is that the Morlocks are afraid of light. So now he gets very scared of them and he decides to take Weena to a safe place because he's scared of the Morlocks. He ends up in a museum. Over there he finds some camphor and some preserved matches, along with a crowbar which he can use as a weapon against the Morlocks. He decides to return from the museum to the place where all the Eloi sleep. So while retreating from the museum into the palaces where the Eloi sleep, he has to cross a patch of woods. Over there he is plagued by the Morlocks. To escape from them, he lights a fire, but that's a grave problem because Weena also dies in the fire along with the Morlocks. Heartbroken, he decides to return to the pedestal of the statue instead of going back to the palace. Surprisingly, he finds out that the pedestal of the statue is actually open, so he rushes inside to his time machine. There's some minor damage to his time machine, so he starts fixing it. But meanwhile, he finds out that the Morlocks are there and it's a trap for him. But before the Morlocks can crowd up on him, he fixes the time machine and then he visits ahead into the future. Some more years later, he stops on a beach. Over there, the air is thin but breathable still. And over there, he's attacked by some giant crabs, and scared, he visits even more into the future instead of going into the past. He ends up in another time, which is even more into the future. Over here, there's almost no air, and the only thing of light that he can see is a big, fat, black blob. Scared and breathless, he returns to the present time. After he recounts his adventure, his guests are reluctant to believe him, even when he shows them some proof. The next day, he leaves them in with a camera this time, but never returns. So this review only scratches the surface of the book, and if you really want to read the whole book, it's a good idea, I think. Thank you.